All right, so you want the inside scoop on becoming a biochemistry technician, huh? Well, you've come to the right place because we've got some really in-depth info from RoleCatcher here, and it seems like you're not just looking for the surface level stuff. Am I right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Reading a job description is one thing, but really understanding what it takes to thrive in this career, that means digging a little deeper.
I hear that. So let's dive in. This RoleCatcher report is fascinating. It's like biochemistry technicians are the secret heroes behind all those amazing scientific discoveries happening in labs.
It's true.
They're analyzing samples, running experiments, and using some really high-tech equipment to figure out how chemicals work within living things.
They're like unlocking the secrets of life itself, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's not just theoretical research either.
Right. They're on the cutting edge of developing all sorts of products we use every day, from medicines to new materials.
It's amazing to think about the impact they have. Okay, but I have a confession. When I hear lab work, I immediately picture those long hours hunched over a microscope. Is that the reality, or is there more to it than that?
Well, you're not wrong about the microscope part. A lot of the job is hands-on in the lab. And yes, it can mean long hours and being incredibly precise.
So attention to detail is key.
Absolutely. But the report also highlights how much variety there is in the tasks involved.
Oh, really? Like what? Tell me more.
Well, for one, you're not working in a bubble all the time. This RoleCatcher deep dive really emphasizes how collaborative the job is. You're part of a team, often with chemists, other biochemists, biologists. You might even interact with clients or vendors, depending on the industry.
That makes sense. After all, science is rarely a solo endeavor, right?
Right. So communication and teamwork, those skills are super important in this role.
So it's not all just beakers and test tubes. What about the intellectual side of things?
That's where it gets really interesting. This isn't just about following a set of instructions. The report actually emphasizes how crucial critical thinking is in this role, like 59% essential for success.
Wow, 59%. I have to admit, I didn't expect critical thinking to be ranked that highly for a technician position.
It's essential. You need to be able to analyze data, troubleshoot experiments, and always be asking why to drive those breakthroughs.
So it's about problem solving just as much as it is about technical skills.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the importance of reading comprehension either. That's ranked at 59% too. You're constantly reading scientific journals, research papers, technical documents to keep up in this field because it's always changing.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
You've got to stay sharp.
Absolutely. And speaking of staying sharp, we can't forget about safety protocols. Remember, you're often working with potentially dangerous materials, so following those procedures meticulously is non-negotiable.
That's a good point. It's serious stuff.
The report emphasizes this, and for good reason, safety is paramount in this line of work.
Right. You can't mess around with hazardous materials.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about the day-to-day, but what about those big aha moments? You mentioned breakthroughs earlier. What kind of impact are we talking about here?
Well, the report talks about how you can contribute to those groundbreaking discoveries. For example, imagine being part of a team that developed a faster, more accurate test for a disease.
Oh.
Or maybe your research helps develop a new life-saving medication. The possibilities are really quite exciting.
That's incredible. To be a part of something with such a tangible impact on people's lives, that must be incredibly rewarding.
It is. But to be realistic, not every single task in the lab is going to be that groundbreaking.
Of course.
The report does mention that there can be repetitive tasks, especially depending on the specific industry.
Right.
Analyzing samples, running routine tests, that's all part of it too.
It's a job after all.
But
Yeah.
even within those routine tasks, there's always something to learn. A chance to refine your skills and contribute to the bigger picture.
I like that perspective
Yeah.
about finding those moments of growth even within the everyday.
Exactly. And speaking of growth, I think it's time we talk about the career path itself. Because one thing that stands out in this RoleCatcher report is that being a biochemistry technician isn't a dead end. There's a real trajectory with opportunities to take on more responsibility, leadership roles, even influence the direction of research.
Okay, now we're talking. I love hearing about those long-term possibilities. So how does this career path actually play out? Like, does everyone start as some kind of junior technician and then just like slowly climb the ladder?
It's not always that straightforward.
Yeah.
The RoleCatcher report does a nice job of outlining the typical stages, but everyone's journey is a little different.
Right. Okay, so walk me through those stages. What are we looking at here?
Sure. So you might start as a trainee or junior technician. You're really getting your hands dirty, learning the essential lab techniques, kind of soaking everything up.
It's like an apprenticeship then.
Yeah, exactly. You're working closely with more experienced technicians, learning from them, and little by little taking on more responsibility.
Makes sense.
And as you gain experience, prove yourself in those early roles, you might move up to a biochemistry technician, I or two position.
Okay.
That's when you start to work more independently, maybe supervise junior staff or even lead on certain projects.
That's where those leadership skills come into play, right?
Exactly. And then you might find yourself on a path to becoming a senior biochemistry technician.
Okay. Now we're talking. This is what I'm really curious about. What does a senior technician actually do? What's their day-to-day like?
Well, the report paints a pretty exciting picture. Imagine this. You're not just running experiments anymore, you're designing them.
Wow.
You're leading a team of technicians, mentoring them, making sure the work is high-quality accurate. You might even be presenting your findings at conferences, publishing research papers, or even managing budgets for your lab.
That's amazing. It seems like there's so much room for growth in this field.
There really is. And one of the things I find really inspiring is that there's always something new to learn. This RoleCatcher report has a whole section on knowledge and learning. It really highlights how important it is for biochemistry technicians to keep learning throughout their career.
So what does that actually look like? How do you stay ahead of the game in such a fast-paced field?
Well, for one thing, going for a higher degree can make a big difference. A master's or even a PhD can open doors to more specialized roles and research opportunities.
So even if you don't necessarily need a PhD to get started, it can be a smart move down the line.
Exactly. And it's not just about formal education either. Attending conferences, keeping up with industry journals, networking with other professionals, those are all important ways to stay informed about new advancements and connect with mentors or future collaborators.
Yeah, those connections can be so valuable, especially in a collaborative field like science. Okay, but let's back up for a sec. You mentioned certifications earlier, like the CLT and MLT. Can you break those down for us? What are they and why are they relevant to this career path?
Sure. The report mentions these certifications as alternative ways to enter the field, especially if you don't have a traditional four-year science degree. So a CLT, a clinical laboratory technician, usually works in a hospital or clinical setting, performing tests on blood and other bodily fluids.
Okay.
An MLT, or medical laboratory technician, has a broader scope of practice. They can work in different places, hospitals, research labs, even forensic labs.
Interesting. So even without a bachelor's in biochemistry, you can still have a successful career in this field by getting certified. That's really cool. But I have to ask, with all this talk about advanced degrees, certifications, is it even possible to get into this field without a ton of student debt?
That's a great question and a really important one, too. While it's true that a bachelor's degree is becoming more and more common for biochemistry technicians, there are definitely ways to reduce those education costs.
Okay, good. Tell me more, because student debt is no joke.
For one thing, community colleges can be a fantastic option. They often offer associate's degrees or certificate programs that give you a solid foundation in the sciences at a much lower cost than a four-year university.
That's a great tip. And I'm guessing those community college programs could even help you transfer to a four-year university later on if you decide to go that route.
You're right. Many community colleges have agreements with four-year institutions, so the credits transfer smoothly, and it makes that transition a lot easier.
That's good to know. So we've covered the traditional route, the certification path, and even the community college option. That's a lot of information. It can be overwhelming if you're just starting to explore this career.
I hear that. It's a lot to take in. But that's actually something I like about RoleCatcher. They don't just throw all this information at you and say good luck. They actually offer some great support.
Oh, like what?
Remember how we talked about their interview prep tools?
Right.
They have this cool feature where you can practice your interviewing skills and get feedback from AI. It's like having your own personal career coach.
That's pretty amazing. Interviews are always nerve-wracking, even when you're totally qualified.
Absolutely. And they have so much more than just interview help. RoleCatcher has a huge library of career guides, salary data, job postings, all in one place. It's really a one-stop shop for anyone serious about becoming a biochemistry technician.
It sounds like they've really simplified the career exploration process, made it much more user-friendly.
Exactly. And I think that's so important because it empowers people to take charge of their own career paths and find something they're passionate about.
I love that. Speaking of passion, that seems like a perfect transition to talk about what makes a biochemistry technician truly successful. And I'm not just talking about technical skills here.
I agree. There's something more that sets the really great technicians apart.
So what is that something more? What helps someone really thrive in this field, even with all the challenges?
It's a combination of things, really.
Mm-hmm.
Hard skills, soft skills, and that inner spark.
So we're talking about more than just what you know, but how you approach the work itself.
Exactly.
Hearing you talk about all this, it really hits home that being a biochemistry technician, it's not just a job, it's more like a calling.
I think that's a great way to put it. It takes a certain kind of person to really thrive in this kind of role.
Someone who's not just okay with hard work, but actually embraces it.
Right. Someone who's naturally curious, always asking questions, and deeply committed to pushing scientific knowledge forward, even if just one tiny step at a time.
It's like they're playing a small but essential role in a much bigger picture.
Exactly.
Uh,
And that, I think, is what makes this career path so incredibly rewarding. To know that the work you're doing in the lab, those long hours, the meticulous experiments, it could all lead to something that improves lives, that changes how we understand the world. It's pretty amazing when you think about it.
Absolutely. This deep dive into the world of biochemistry technicians has been truly fascinating. We've gone from the ins and outs of working in a lab to the broader impact of scientific research, and I think it's safe to say this is a career with tons of potential for anyone with the passion and the drive to go for it.
I completely agree. And if our listener takes away one thing from today, I hope it's that this field is never standing still. There's always something new to learn, new challenges to tackle, and so many opportunities to grow and discover along the way.
And for anyone who's feeling inspired to explore this exciting career path, don't forget to check out RoleCatcher. Their in-depth guides, AI-powered interview practice, and comprehensive career resources can be a huge help as you dive into the world of science.
Absolutely, because knowledge is power, and RoleCatcher really gives you the tools you need to take control of your career.
Well said. And with that, we've reached the end of another deep dive. Until next time, keep those questions coming and never stop exploring.